Okay, so welcome everybody to our all open office hour session. It's been a long time since we've been able to do this. Now that we have our brand new campus in Taos, New Mexico, it's very, very exciting for us. We've got a lot of things to share with you. And when we originally scheduled this, we thought we would be moving into this new place a week ago, not this afternoon. So yeah, like I said, be patient with us, and we're still really happy to be here. Can't wait to share all the great stuff that we have to share with you. Let's see here, go here. Thank you. We're really excited about this. This is something Sam and I have been wanting to do this for years, and now that we're here, it almost seems a little surreal. So let's go ahead. Let me begin by going over a couple of things. Tonight, Sam is going to share a very quick impromptu lecture on herbs for cold and flu. But before that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on, because we get a lot of emails of people who want to know what's the deal with this new campus. And does that mean that we're not going to be doing on-site classes anymore? The answer is no. We have two campuses instead of one. So up on some of the online courses that are coming up, these are the big ones on this first page here. The Apothecaris Internal Medicine Preparations course. That one is starting on September 4th. It is only offered one time a year. It's the one that we do every fall, where we go over how you go about setting up an apothecary, all the basic things that you need to know as you begin creating a space, whether it's commercial or personal. And we also go into making 9 different preparations throughout the semester that build upon each other to give you a really good understanding of how to use things that you have on hand, as well as being able to be more creative. And what I really love about the Apothecaris and the approach that we use there is that it is doing preparations that are less common. They're not your standard variety type of thing. And we send out a box that has materials for you to be able to make your medicines with. And we go over during the course the preparations, and as well as things like marketing and branding, and so forth. So that one begins on September 4th. And right before that actually is coming right up on August 22nd. So that's only a couple of weeks away. The Herbal Medicine for Professionals course is coming up. And this year is the first year in a few years now that we've been able to have Sam teach this. He's redoing and revamping the entire the course, and is going to be doing live sessions. Sam, do you want to talk just for a second about how the HMP is going to be a little bit different this time around?
Sure. It's been about 3 years, I think, since this was last recorded. So it's definitely due. I used to try to do this fresh, like at least every other year. In fact, when it first started, I was revamping it about every year. So it's been a little while, and it just needs updating. Things change in herbalism, and medicine and integrative medicine all the time. And so I think, of course, the last time we recorded this was pre-COVID as well. And I think there's a lot of issues that are out there. And I was going to talk about a little bit tonight, specifically in regards to herbal medicine, just a little in regards to COVID, long COVID, issues around respiratory infections, and the CNS issues, some of the neurological inflammation and issues around that, cardiovascular inflammation, some of the things that we are kind of new to this, right? New to this emerging sort of world of post-COVID, infection. So that's not like I'm focusing on that, but I guess in the one example of many of how medicine changes and evolves all the time. Epidemiology evolves all the time. 20 or 30 years ago, type 2 diabetes, especially in kids or teenagers, was not a problem. It was practically unheard of compared to now. So the epidemiology around us, lifestyle, toxins, nutrition, lack thereof, food desert type environment that many of us live in. All of those things contribute to a changing landscape all the time of epidemiology and medicine that, flows off of that. So in that regard, that's kind of the 10,000-foot view, down getting a little bit closer. The HMP, the Herbal Medicine for Professionals, I feel kind of needs a little bit of it needs more personal attention as a class as well. So instead of giving a lot of lecture, instead of giving, gosh, I think it comes up to like almost 4 hours of lecture a week. That's just too much. So I'd like to cut that down into short bursts of 10 to 15 to 20 minute, small lectures, which we did artificially with stuff I did. But instead, I'm actually doing this as I record this time. And that's one half of the week. The other half of the week is live. So to interact on what you have heard, and even if you haven't, at least to have learning objectives that are set out there in front of you. So every week what the learning objectives are and what we're going to go through. And even if you can't keep up and for some reason life gets in the way, it's all downloadable. So you can go through this and you can always ask questions that are answered in the Q&A and the live lecture. The live lecture / Q&A is what it is. So it's kind of like I'll have a subject that's that particular week subject that I'll lecture in more depth on, and then entertain, of course, questions as part of that, and really have a better interaction with the class. Well, not better, but just to have an in-depth interaction with the class. And so that's kind of what my goal is for this time around in the HMP. And if you jump in on it, this fall, then you really get that live experience. The live experience isn't going to go away. It's going to be, between Michael and Carol and some of our other instructors. They have taken over these pieces in the past, and that probably will happen to some extent as well. But this time around, I'm going to try to be a very integral part of every live lecture and Q&A throughout the course, to give material also for future classes as well as to kind of set a standard that I'd really like to see us follow in terms of the learning objectives and how we follow those every week.
Okay, cool. Yes, this is, so I see a lot of names that are new here. And I just want to let you know that this one, the HMP, is considered to be our foundation herbal medicine course. If you are interested in clinical herbalism, this is a course that's required as part of that. And to that measure, all 3 of these courses that you see up here, if you are interested in doing on-site clinical work in the clinic that we are literally creating right now, these are classes that you will want and need as a part of that. So we will have students who are coming in to get clinical training in a real clinic working with real clients. And we will have students who are also going to be doing apothecary training on site in this space as well. So it's going to be a really nuanced way that we have never been able to do prior to this, because we've had limitations in our environment in San Antonio. And now we have a space that's specifically dedicated to that. And students can come out for a weekend, they can come out for a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever they need in order to get the clinical requirements done, so they can get that hands-on time both in the apothecary and working with clients in that environment. So clinical nutrition, that is taught by our faculty member, Dr. Kyla Helm. That one is starting on September 12th. It is only offered once a year. The HMP, as we mentioned before, is going to start in just a couple of weeks. That's offered twice a year. I highly recommend, if you haven't taken this one, to get in on this one when it is being redone with Sam Life. And of course, the apothecarist internal medicine, that is your foundation for being able to work and make medicine in the apothecary, September 4th. Okay, so we have other courses on this page I want to talk about really quickly. The austere acute care 12-week medicine course is coming up in September as well. Let me move my little cursor. That's on September 19th. That's taught by Sam and by Dr. Pearson. If you are one of the students that is interested in moving forward to do the home intensive course a year from now in August of 2023, this is one you have to have. This is the last time it's being offered before the intensive course rolls around. So if you've been thinking you want to do the home course in 2023, a year from right now, then definitely don't miss the opportunity to get in on this course when it starts in September. It's a fantastic course. It covers a lot of material. And I was speaking with a student this past week, trying to explain what's the difference between this course and, say, for instance, wound management, infection control. This is a course that gives you foundation skills that build off of wound management, or even the herbal management of acute viral infection course that's just wrapping up. So this is kind of the next step of what you would do in an environment where you can't get to higher care to deal with things like kidney stones or UTIs or other things that may even be more serious. So this, in my opinion, these austere courses are a must-have as we kind of move into a landscape of less stability in healthcare. I can say this because I'm beginning my own journey into healthcare, getting my BSN, and I see it in the environment where we are currently. There's not enough qualified coverage. And so this is something that a lot of people do without solid healthcare. And the more that I learn about that particular world, the more that I feel very passionate about both our programs, of course, but both the austere medicine. And what that means is medicine when you're, an hour or more away from higher care, or you simply can't get to higher care for whatever reason. Maybe you are not, maybe there is a natural disaster, which makes it impossible to get there. Maybe there's a global pandemic and you can only do telehealth. Maybe there is social unrest or any other different reason that makes it very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get to higher care. And being able to know and understand body systems and how you can proactively work for your own healthcare and for those around you is something that I think is very important. So, Sam, did you want to add something about austere acute?
Just briefly about austere medicine in general, and a lot of people I think of austere medicine as being something that only is emergency. I mean, the term austere medicine really, in what it implies is that there's no higher care for indefinite amount of time. We don't know when. It's not like a wilderness first responder where we have higher care. We just are more than an hour away. So we're, packaging and stabilizing a patient and moving them to higher care and doing it as quickly as we can and as readily as we can without causing any further injury, and hopefully even helping them a little on the way. That's it. Austere, there is the word, we're not packaging anybody up and taking care of those things like we would in a WFR environment or a WFA environment or a wilderness EMT environment, any of those, because there's no higher care as far as we know. What that means is, though, is not that, this is only something to think about if there's a zombie apocalypse and it's for people who, are only preppers. It's for everybody. It's for people at home. It's whether you live in the middle of the city or whether you live in a rural environment or on a farm or whatever. I think we saw this very plainly when COVID hit, that, you could be in the middle of the city and you still were very, going to the hospital in America was not a good place to go. Going to the ER was not a place to have to go if you had a heart attack or you had or something less, that's a little, off into the serious side of things where we have to have certain equipment, of course, and certain experience and professional level of help, healthcare. But for the strep throat or the sore throat or the sinus infection or the UTI, or the upper respiratory tract infection that's really bad. All of those things, that's the last place you wanted to end up, was sitting in an ER where there was a much higher transmission of COVID, and where people were just inundated and overwhelmed. A lot of healthcare facilities were overwhelmed. Regardless of that, and that's just one example. But even beyond that, if you just want to be more comfortable at home and being able to take care of of your kids or your loved ones, whatever that may be, through not just knowing how to maybe apply some herbs and a formula for something, but going beyond that into depth and even understanding the sustainability of that medicine. So I just wanted to say briefly that Steve Parison and I, we don't script any of this stuff. It's really good. I like it because it's not, we don't sit down and go back and forth. And the same thing with Kyla on functional medicine. We don't, although Kyla and I have worked together a lot, so we know each other, and what we do really well. And Steve and I haven't really worked together per se, professionally, but we both come up from a original background that's very similar. And then, of course, he and I see eye to eye on so many things. It's a natural fit. But it's really good because it's like even though we have prepared slides and everything, things come up where it's just like he'll start talking about something, and Steve is amazing. He is an amazing wealth of knowledge. I mean, any given 15 minutes of listening to Steve talk is just profoundly enlightening for me, for anybody, in my opinion. It doesn't matter what your background in medicine is, you're going to learn something. He's just so much experience, and he's so open to different ideas. He's the, in my opinion, he's the culmination of what an emergency medicine / family practice doc is, who wants to be integrative and who wants to integrate with whatever works. And then Kyla's the same way. And this is why it works so well with us, because these are doctors who there's no ego. They just want to see what works, right? So and I'm not meaning to get on a long tangent here, but I just wanted to say that it's unscripted, a lot of the stuff that happens. And Steve will go on to a big thing, and then I will, and then I'll say, well, here's where what I would do, and here's what I have done. And he always says afterwards, man, I learned so much when I listened to you. I learned so much when I listened to you. And it's perfect, because that's exactly what integrative medicine is supposed to be, right? We're supposed to all be able to learn from each other, and we're supposed to be able to work with a patient or patients in an integrative manner. So they're not getting their blood pressure meds over here, and they're getting their diabetes medication over here, and nobody's talking to each other, and now they've got all of these weird side effects. And then they go to to an acupuncturist, and the acupuncturist doesn't really know how to manipulate or to integrate with what's going on over there, and they maybe don't even really know enough Western pharmaceutical medicine to recognize side effects. And so I mean, you could go on and on with what's wrong with our healthcare in that way. And so this is, the austere version of, and the wilderness version, but it all comes back down to home. I mean, to your home, being able to work in your home with your own loved ones, et cetera, or work in your own practice and just be more expanded about that.
Thank you, Sam. So one of our students is asking about how physically demanding but first of all, the austere acute care course is online. Again, it starts in September 19th. It's a 12-week course, has a midterm break halfway through, but that's all online. It's a prerequisite for the home intensive. And the question is, how physically demanding is the home intensive? And if a person has physical limitations, is this something they would be able to do?
It would maybe depend a little on what those physical limitations were. So if you could walk for, a quarter mile, and you can, you don't have to lift anything heavy. You don't have to, there's a WFR component to this, but you don't have to, be able to lift a minimum of 50 pounds or anything like that. If you can't lift, it's no problem. If you have a bad back, it's no problem. You do have to be able to walk a little bit, not like we're going anywhere, walking anywhere, but it's just the nature of the WFR portion of that is going to be that, we are walking around a little bit. And then in the MAP, the medical advanced party, the nature of that course is there's a little bit of figuring out, the lay of the land as such. It's not like a high, octane orienteering course, although we can, and for some people that have that energy, we absolutely are gonna have this part, but everything is a team. So I guess my point to that is, if you are somebody who has some physical limitations, but you're part of a team, that's part of what we've got. That's what we're working with. And there's absolutely things that you are able to do. Especially, I think it was Betsy asking that question. So Betsy, with your experience and your background, there are going to be things that you're very valuable to the team that you don't have to have. You don't have to be able to run, a 6-minute mile, and you don't have to be able to carry 80 pounds on your back or anything like that. It's part of what the team has to figure out is that, okay, we've got to do this or this, and there are some physical things we have to do. We have to set up a shelter, et cetera. And, but we also, we have to have some knowledge about how we're going to organize our medical gear. And we have to have, we're working with some role players that are going to be, people who need medical help. We need somebody who has a background to be able to talk about that, what's going on there, what's the epidemiology, what do we expect when we're going there with our team then, and in the austere acute and the austere trauma portions, what kind of things are we going to be likely most to see? So how do we start setting up for that? So absolutely, I think, I would say, if you were, I don't think we've had in this particular course, we've had somebody, for instance, who was wheelchair bound, and that might be a little difficult. That would be maybe on the end that we would have to talk about how we could do that. We could still do it. We absolutely could. There are absolutely enough pieces to this puzzle where a person could probably sit the entire time and still be a very, very active part of everything that's happening in the team. But we just haven't been faced with that. I mean, we've had people who are wheelchair bound in some of our courses, but just not this one. So that's something, but I know you're not, and I know that's not what you're asking. I'm saying that's literally the extreme that we could probably go to if we had to.
Okay. I wanted to add on this that I think very much this mirrors reality, because if you have a team that's working in any type of environment like we talk about, I mean, when we're talking about this type of course, we do talk about things like post-disaster and natural disaster, things that are happening, social unrest, all the things that could potentially happen in an environment. And you're not going to have like a team of triathletes. You're going to have real people and real people with limitations. So I just wanted to put that out. If people are thinking, if you're intimidated by thinking that it's something that's out of your reach, please speak with us and let us know a little bit more about that. And we can give you guidance as to whether it is or isn't a good fit. But it's something we try to be as accessible as possible to everyone. Okay, so let me move on here. We still have a bunch of things to do before Sam's slides. The Advanced Mycology Medicine Making Intensive. This is another one. It's only offered one time a year. We send out a box with equipment and mushrooms and herbs so that students can learn how to make mycology or herbal mycology formulations. This is one of the most popular ones that we have every year. And that is going to be, the packages are actually going to ship out 1 week prior to September 26th. That's when the course is opening, and students will be able to download and begin going through a tremendous amount of medicine making work on that one. So it's a really fun course. And it's one of the most popular ones we do right next to multi-fractional herbal extracts. The Earthwise Doula Certification course, once a year, it starts September 16th. I'm always very proud of this course. It is run by Katia Lamont. She is a certified midwife. She has a master's in public health. She is a doula and has just a ridiculous amount of knowledge in the skill of assisting other people to give birth. And many of the births that she's assisted on have been in developing nations, areas without things like power or adequate water supply. Just the experience that she has, and altitude. That was a question earlier. She has just an experience that is unlike other nurse midwives that we have seen. So she developed the Earthwise Doula program as it's a full spectrum program from the very beginning until well after the birth that allows the doula to have all the skill sets to be able to be of assistance in not only in a birth situation, but in a less than ideal birth situation. So the person that she has helping her is Mel Bailey. She's a certified nurse midwife. She's an RN. And she's been helping Katia with this course for years. And it's just absolutely, if you have never taken a course with Mel, I highly recommend it because she is just incredible to work with. So this course is coming up in September. And this is one, it's part of, it's within the family herbalism track. But if you're not interested in all of those courses, you can take the Earthwise Doula certification as a singular track and work through that for certification. Okay, let me go to our next slide here. All right, and we also have some workshops. I teach some of these workshops and we have other instructors as well. These, everything you see on, well, the 2 medicine making ones, those are 1 time a year. The cold and flu herbal lozenges, pastilles, and electuaries workshop is on the 15th of September. And that one is just like pretty much everything that's in the vein of medicine making. We send you out a box and we go through making medicine if you choose to do it during the workshop, there for you. And I walk you through how to make formulations. Self-care medicine making, that is the 20th of October. That's another one of mine. It is excellent for those who are either in healthcare, those who are in any type of position where you're working with other human beings, or people who simply need to do a better job of taking care of themselves. So my angle on this was I created this course after being a caregiver for my mother for 4 years and recognizing that I was not doing proper self-care for myself, and also recognizing that others that I knew who were herbalists or nutritionists or massage therapists or physical therapists or doctors or nurses or teachers, people who take care of other people. It doesn't have to be healthcare. We're not doing as great of a job of taking care of themselves. They put themselves at the end of the line. So this is a little 2-hour workshop where we go through some very simple and basic things that will help people to be able to kind of explore that and to do a better job of taking care of themselves so that they can pass that along to other people as well. The Scout Go Bag, I think, is a fantastic course for people who are interested in, you know, what basically having a plan. So one of our instructors, sorry, excuse me, just one quick second. I have to yell at my dog. Sorry about that. She's just licking entirely too loud. So the Scout Go Bag class is for people who are really want to have a plan for if anything is happening or being prepared or having their neighborhood or their close community at hand, having a plan. And so again, we send out materials for this one. It's taught by Rick Murphy. Fantastic course. So that's September 21st. That one is offered twice a year. Okay. And now I'm going to turn this over to Sam. He's going to go over some herbs for the cold and flu. Sam, do you want to share your own screen for this, or are you?
No, so I didn't
Okay.
get the slides done. Yeah, I barely even got to be able to log on quickly enough. So sorry about that, everybody. We've been moving all day and we're both pretty exhausted. And we literally closed on the house this morning, been moving stuff in, and we don't even have, like, I'm sitting on a bed on the floor with a chair as my table right here upstairs with our 14-year-old dog lying here next to me. And we don't even have a table in the house yet. So a little bit underprepared for this. I apologize, but let's talk a little bit about that. And if anybody has questions, of course, this is the perfect time to just talk. You can probably hear from my voice, I still have something myself. I got COVID pretty bad. It's the worst I've ever been sick, I think, in my life, at least in my adult life that I remember. In the sense, it wasn't for the longest period of time. It was a pretty short duration, thanks to herbs. But it's the first time I really ever have had an illness where I literally felt like I couldn't get enough oxygen. And we were up at a higher altitude. So we had just come up to a higher altitude. So I was still adjusting to the higher altitude. That's part of it, of course. But, you know, my O2 saturation was down in the mid 80s to high 80s almost consistently. And that's not that unusual necessarily at a higher altitude when you're, you know, we were about almost 9,000 feet, you know, coming from San Antonio. But the illness made it really bad. And it was to the point where I couldn't sleep then for it got kind of maxed out to where I was, I tried to fall asleep. It's like 2 a.m. and I was sitting in a recliner in the RV too, which being sick in an RV or in a hotel room or anything like that is always horrible too. If you're not home, don't have a home, and I've experienced that too, but it always sucks. And this was no different, but I was actually in a recliner, so I wouldn't keep Suchil up, and I was trying to keep my chest a little higher. And I would just start to drift off to sleep, and then I would feel like I was being suffocated. I got a plastic bag over my head or something, and I'd start awake. I mean, I'd be asleep for like 30 seconds, and I'd come awake because I'd relaxed. And then when I was awake, I could focus on my breathing. So it's like, okay, and we didn't have any cotton scented herbs, so I had tinctures, and I had some good tinctures that helped, but I didn't have any cotton scented herbs. Like, okay, so then the next morning, we went down to the herb shop, or Suchil did, and picked up a whole bunch of cut and sifted, dried herbs that I could work with for steam inhalation. And you can certainly work with herbs with tinctures in a steam inhalation, but it's not the same. You just don't get that same, intensity in that steam. So anyway, I mean, within an hour or 2 hours of doing steam inhalations, I became my O2 saturation went up to low 90s, felt much better. I was able to actually sleep, and then and I just kind of did that throughout the day. And I should probably be doing it right now, just because there's still junk in my lungs. I'm fine. My my O2 sat is mid 90s all the time, and we're still at a high altitude. It's okay. It's not perfect. I feel like I'm in horrible shape right now because we've been RVing for 6 months, and I haven't actually been able to do any kind of serious exercise, I feel like, but we're here, so I can start doing that too. But I definitely feel like there's still, leftover a lot of phlegm, and it's moving, it's productive. It's not, it's not like a dry, very productive. And also I feel like there's inflammation there still. So what I would talk about briefly, and I think this is something I talked about for years now, is, getting the herb to the tissue. And when it comes to upper respiratory stuff, to be able to either nebulize or steam, inhale steam is such a huge thing. The steam limits you a little bit in the sense that it's going to be more the aromatic, and your aromatic constituents that are going to be more effective, evaporating the steam and inhaling. So your very non-aromatic herbs are not usually as effective. I feel like, but so that brings in, like pine family and juniper family and those types of herbs. So for me, the key is thyme, Thymus vulgaris, juniper berry was a huge one there. I'll write these down real quick here. And I think I posted a thing about this too, but thyme, juniper, berries, and then thuja, arborvitae or eastern red cedar, sometimes it's called. There's different species, but basically the thuja, any of the thuja species, very, very powerful, very strong here. Rosemary, very helpful there as well. And then a little bit of chaparral as well, the Laurea species. Laurea tridentata really is usually what it is. So that as an inhalation works really well. Could you do the same thing as a nebulizer? You absolutely could. You could decoct it and then you could nebulize it. That's better than like taking a tincture and trying to either nebulize it or even steam inhale it. Not that a tincture doesn't work. It's just you don't quite get the same potency as when you can put in, a good amount of dried herb into a gallon pot of water and, get that thing up to almost a rolling boil, pull the, use the lid for your, to control the amount of steam, get a towel or something over your head, a blanket, whatever over your head, and then just sit there and be able to inhale for several minutes through your nose, through your mouth, and just get that herb to the tissue, And I think nebulizers work really well for this too, in a lot of different ways that are unexplored, in the world of herbal medicine overall. I've been working with it for a long time, but I feel like the problem is getting other people, how do you get, a person has to buy a nebulizer or have a nebulizer available in order to do that. But it's so amazing because you can, Kyla has been, and I have been playing around with this for quite a while. So she'll work with her patients and we talked about, what about things that we need to get, that it would be great to get into the bloodstream, without that first pass detoxification of the liver, and not going through the gut and not relying on whether it's going to make it across the brush border, get into the, portal circulation or whatever from the gut in order to be able to get in the bloodstream in the first place. A great example that's well known is berberine. And berberine has so many anti-inflammatory properties for the cardiovascular system, for other aspects, for the urinary tract, even if you wanted to use it that way, but you just can't get it to the bloodstream, right? Through the gut. I mean, it's amazing for the gut, but you just can't get it across that, that gut wall into the, but how about sublingual? How about nebulizing it? Now it's difficult to know because you really have to, we haven't been able to set up the situation where we can do that and test how much berberine is making it into the bloodstream when we do that. But you can tell certainly physically, and she has had dozens of patients that have worked with nebulizers for berberine to try to get working with Algarita, for instance, using berberine for cardiovascular inflammation and seeing that that there is a result from this. It's not the same result. It's a more effective result than what she's seen from taking it across, through the gut. So, that's one small example of many that give us that just getting the herb to the tissue, or I'm sorry, through the alveoli into the bloodstream directly gives us that, and let alone the fact that when we're talking about an upper respiratory tract infection, we really need to affect the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract, right? We need to get that herb into that area. So I think that's a really profound lesson to continue, thinking about strongly for cold and flu season. And of course, COVID plays this huge role now in it because, even if you're testing, you might get a false positive or a false negative. You don't know for sure if you've got it or not. For me, it's probably the third time I've had it. It's the first time I tested it, but I know it's at least the second, if not the third time I had it. I'm pretty sure I got the strain before this last one. And the funny thing was, it was right before I got exposed to it, I'm sure. And I even know when it happened, a couple of days before I got the booster. And then I was so sick. So I've had vaccinations, I've had a booster. And yet this was the sickest I've ever been with anything, to actually feel that and really be able to empathize with people who just can't get enough oxygen and are feeling, that way. And it's a horrible feeling. And it's so seems so counter, we've got people that are in good shape, that are physically active and are in good shape and aren't even really overweight, that are dying sometimes of this, right? A good friend who's an herbalist also, her father just died. He was 60, but very active person, running triathlons and just had always been active, mentally active, but really just a go-getter and great shape. Died just a couple of months ago of COVID, got it and ended up with some complications and died a few weeks later. So, this is a whole new landscape really in upper respiratory infections that we don't know for sure what that effect is. So I don't mean to sound alarmist, but I feel like, anytime we get a cold or a flu, COVID kind of has to come and play a role in that to some extent. Anytime we have some of these issues that are starting to come out with our nervous system, inflammation that seems to be coming out, COVID may be playing a role in those, and so that inflammation and working with that is fine because we can do that with herbs and we can do it really well, but we just have to follow that maxim of getting the herbs to the tissue, right? However we do that. For instance, for neuroregenerative herbs, I always call them my favorite herbs to be able to use that help regenerate the myelin sheath and also happen to support mitochondrial function a lot too. Many of them have that work that way as well. Is across the mucosa of the nasal pharynx, basically across the nose. So like a nausea oil, an oil that you can put into the mucosa and can get across that. It has a huge effect on inflammation that we're finding with CNS type symptoms. Adani says, any special considerations with cold flu type herbs of folks suffering from emphysema or COPD? Yeah, absolutely. So again, what we're going to be looking at there is that doesn't change the fact that we want to be able to get the herb to the tissue. And here also, we might even find that with emphysema specifically, if we can relax, if we can work topically, with herbs that we're putting on a sort of a vapor, kind of like a rub on the chest, that we're going to probably find some benefit from that as well. But in general, no, I mean, it's not like I don't feel that the inspiration or the to breathe in herbs, whether through steam inhalation or through nebulizing, changes much, in the sense that we're trying to also work with herbs that are bronchodilators. We're trying to work with herbs that are smooth muscle relaxants. We're trying to work with herbs that help reduce inflammation. We're trying to work with herbs that help break up phlegm and give us more of a productive cough. All of those things still, I feel, are absolutely goals that we're going to work with, regardless if there's COPD involved or not. I'm sure TJ asked about herbs that improve mitochondrial function. So some of these herbs are that I find, and again, these are herbs that also, many of them that also have been found to increase the repair and support repair of the myelin sheath around the nerve tissue. So what are some of these herbs? Well, the first time I ever heard about this mitochondrial function and nerve regeneration was an experiment that was done in India with ashwagandha for people that were they were early onset Alzheimer's patients, and they were using the nausea oil for this. And the research is out there. I can't remember, this was probably 10 or 15 years ago that I remember reading this, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. So the herb that they were using was ashwagandha. And indeed, ashwagandha is also, let me just write down some of these herbs that I'm talking about here. Another really good one is Cornus officinalis. I'm going to give you the botanical name of them, because a lot of them are herbs that are found in TCM and traditional Chinese medicine. And because of the fact that traditional Chinese medicine likes to test herbs and figure out why are these working so well, empirically, why out of thousands and thousands of people that use this, we have an 80% success rate, what's going on? And so you'll find that kind of research where you won't really find that a lot of times with Western herbs, or as much. So Cornus officinalis, and then Achiranthes bidentata. And then we have some that would not surprise you at all, because they are also considered to be, well, we call them adaptogens, for instance, amongst other things. Cordyceps is a great example of this. Another good one is in the ginger family, and it's Alpinia oxyphila. Damiana. Speaking of, again, of your kind of adaptogenic, herbs. Now, man, I don't want to run down the rabbit hole of adaptogens and energy, and when we're feeling, low on energy type of thing. But I think there's a really big disconnect in Western medicine, whether it's holistic medicine or whether it's allopathic care, where we are approaching issues around fatigue and mental fog and low energy, and trying to hit them in areas of things like adaptogens, because we need to for a lot of times people say adrenal like adrenal overtaxation and so forth, and that's not really what's happening there. I think that's really not even throwing a band-aid on it. That's really not looking at the big picture of what may be going on there, and usually is. Anytime we have an issue that's related, these are related, and I don't mean to get off the track from mitochondria, but they're related, and so I'll come back to it. But anytime we have an issue where we have low energy involved around a chronic or slow onset type of issue, the life changes, menopausal changes, those types of things, we're talking about endocrine, the endocrine system. We're talking about a system that's very difficult to just pinpoint one thing and say, hey, let's just give you a bunch of energy and you're going to fix it. Or let's try to lower your cortisol levels, or let's try to raise your cortisol levels, or whatever it may be that you're trying to do. Right? How's your thyroid? You know, what are your thyroid hormones doing? It's like playing whack-a-mole, you know, with these hormones. And that's just not the way that our bodies are really working. And so with that said, then, so mitochondrial function, increasing mitochondrial function, I think that has a very, very profound and meaningful place, excuse me, in helping somebody who's recovering from something like that, like, or maybe, you know, Lyme disease, you know, it's coming out of Lyme disease and they're having fatigue issues. And where I first got into this and why I created the one formula that we sell in our store called Mighty Mito was because of because Kyla Helm, MD, who says functional medicine doc, right? Who said, I'm getting a lot of these folks where we're at the end of working through something. We're done with, we're fixing a lot of the lab values anyway, right? And we're working because of, you know, through diet and exercise and some herbs and supplements and lifestyle. And their numbers or their, you know, their blood work, their everything is looking better, but they're just kind of having a hard time getting over this hump of fatigue. Could we, and what I think is going on is we just have a problem with mitochondrial function in different tissue, in different organ systems. Is there anything out there that might work for that? Well, it's funny that she'd asked, because that was when I was doing all the neuroRegen research and I kept finding these relationships between those. So that's when I came up with that formula and we started using it, and it's really an amazing formula. It gives people energy without making them wired, or it's not, you know, it's not a caffeine kind of formula at all, but it just makes their minds wake up, makes them want to do something, makes them want to work out, makes them want to get out of bed. So, and of course, you know, that's in the, you know, in the bigger picture of all the other things that we're doing to try to work with these issues that are probably related to some sort of an endocrine imbalance that's then related to something deeper than that too, in my opinion. In my opinion, that's where something like traditional Chinese medicine can really help a lot as we start looking at those kinds of things. I'm sorry, I got really on that, and I know there was a whole bunch of questions, or a few questions that I missed here. Okay. All right, Eileen, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, does this course address how to use, I'm sorry, I can't. Let's do it this way. Does this course address how to use herbs to address how to use herbs to address underlying chronic overinflammation? Yes. Well, which class are you talking about? A lot of our courses talk a lot. We even have an entire pathophysiology course on inflammation. So I'm not sure which course you're talking about. But especially as we're talking about something related to COVID, back to inflammation, back to our viral, our antiviral, our herbs for viral illnesses course also talk about that as well. I don't have an up-to-date course specific to all of these issues that we're seeing now that are coming out with long COVID and with inflammation. I don't. I would like to start into that with this version of the HMP. It's not going to, this is a basic course. Well, some people would argue that it's definitely not. And we get people coming in that are, you know, they say, well, I studied for 2 years at school, and they come in and take the HMP and they're like, oh my God, I don't know any of this stuff. But it's, so it's not necessarily all basic, but I still want to get into this. And this is part of the reason I'm doing it right now is, yes, I am going to talk about some of this stuff as we get into inflammation related to COVID as well in the HMP, but it's not going to be nearly as, because it is, you know, we have to do so many other things, medicine making and other different organ systems, et cetera. It's not going to be as in-depth as I'd like it to be. I would love to do a full course on COVID and long COVID and upper respiratory and then inflammation throughout the body. Absolutely. Nadoni says affection and inflammation with the herbalists. Yes. And those things, of course, you know, we've got tons of information there, but it's still, so it was a pre-COVID that I did that course. So one could use, I would love to do one that's just specific to COVID. I think we could do a full pathophysiology course. The more that I work with people long COVID, the more I think we could probably do that. Okay. What else? Let's see. That's and then, oh, you're welcome, TJ. Thank you. And then Adoni, thank you, Adoni. I'm glad you like that. I think, did I get all the questions? Did I miss anybody? oh no, I'm sorry. There's one up here about, I saw something with the cytokine storm. I'm sorry, I'm using I don't have my mouse, so I have a hard time here. Okay, I'm sorry. No, the cytokine. Yes, that was Eileen's question. Talking also about cytokine storm, blood clotting phase, and not just addressing the acute viral phase. Yes, okay. So I think I hopefully answered that question for you. I mean, so the answer is sort of got some of the stuff there, and I want to have a lot more. So hopefully that's helpful. Yes, Mighty Mito, Jessica. Amy could put the link up to that probably, or somebody could off the store too, if you're interested in it. And I mean, if nothing else, you don't have to buy, obviously I'm not trying to sell you on it, but if you check it out, you can get the ingredients right there. It'll list the ingredients, and that might help you, if you wanted to check out those herbs too yourself. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Somebody put a link up there if they could.
I'm not able to, I can't do it because I'm in a full screen, but Amy, if you could, it is herbalfirstaidgear.com under botanical formulas, and then scroll to M for Mighty Mito. So we can have Amy post that.
Great.
Do you have more, Sam, or are you good? Are you done?
No, I guess so. Yeah, just if there's any questions out of that, I guess since I don't have like a bunch of slides prepared with specific herbs or anything, I don't want to go rambling on and left without specific questions maybe. But if anybody has any questions about any of that, yeah, we can talk more in depth about it.
Sure. So let's do this. If anyone has any questions on this topic or anything else, go ahead and put it in chat, and I'll go ahead and move on to the next couple of slides. Thank you, Amy. So Amy's put the link there for Mighty Mito. Okay. All right. So next up is on-demand learning. I saw someone saying that they would be interested in taking the COVID class. So we don't have the specific COVID class, but there is some of the things that you see listed here. The pathophysiology, infection and inflammation. All 12 of the pathophysiology courses are available on demand. You can take them guided, which means there's an instructor that goes through the material with you. And I believe those who are doing infection and inflammation right now, that just closed last week, but it is available on demand. So you can go through and work your way through these. Each of those pathophysiology modules give you 16 hours of documented clinical herbalism that you can have going forward. We have the Woman in the Woods. This is a triad of classes. We have 3 classes taught by myself and Jen Osha by UC, and it's about women feeling more comfortable and secure in outdoor environments, remote or not. And so this is a series that we recorded about 2 years ago. It's a fantastic, the detail that Jen goes to in these courses is just really, it's really wonderful. So that one is on demand. The address, the URL to find all of these is at the top here. We also have Introduction to Herbal Medicine. If you are taking the HMP, that's the Herbal Medicine for Professionals, that is included at no cost for you. It's free, and it's there before the course if you want it, or after. Then we have the SHTF, Herbal Medicine and Wilderness First Aid course. That's kind of a little bit more gritty look at herbal medicine. And Emergency Radio and Communications. These that you see here are just a few of the ones that are in the online catalog. You can go through, just click on where the little drop down list says on demand, and you can see all the courses that are available. And I think, I see that several people have questions, so I'm gonna let Sam go ahead and answer those. But before I hand it off to him, if you have questions about the clinical program, the person you want to speak to is Crystal. Her email is here. Our emails are pretty simple. It's THP for the human path, the first name of the instructor, and their last initial. So THP Crystal C at gmail.com. She can help you. If you want course bundles, tuition questions, or if you have any admin questions, Anna is a person that you want. Her email, I'm going to type it in here. That's thpannac@gmail.com. She can help you. She's incredibly fast and very thorough, and she can help you put together a bundle if you are interested. We do also have on our website bundles and discounts and specials and so forth. The address is right there. If you're on the website, there's a nav bar that goes across the top. It says 2022 specials. If you just click on that, it shows you all the things that are current for right now. And I'll hand this back over to Sam to answer the questions for him.
I was going to say, Suchil, there may be one in there for you to answer. Is the question about can you recommend a specific bag to buy on Amazon for the herbal medicine first aid course going on right now? And I'm not sure what bag you all.
I would love to be able to do that, but we can't. And it's not because we won't, it's because the supply chain for many of the bags that we have is constantly changing. And it's even gotten to a point where we can order a bag on the 15th and the one that we get is completely different. So I'm very sorry. I don't have on Amazon, actually. Carolyn, if you would send me an email, my email is thehumanpathschool@gmail.com. For Amazon, let me look at what we have available. The problem with Amazon, actually the problem with all the bags that we're getting right now is you're not always going to get what you think you are ordering. There's a lot of unpredictability, and the supply chain it's very difficult. But if you send me an email, I can check into it for you.
Okay, great. Angela asks right below that, what are your thoughts about andrographis and viruses? Andrographis is an amazing herb. It's an amazing herb. It's a really easy herb to grow too. It's a roadside weed in India, on the train tracks and stuff is where you'll see it. And I've grown it, and I've not even tried to grow it. I've just put it into pots. This was back when we lived in San Antonio, and I had a sort of a winter greenhouse. I didn't really try to vent it or to keep temperatures. I wasn't that careful with it necessarily. But andrographis would just reseed, not just in that pot, but in any pot. So it's just, it just grows like a weed. And it's an amazing plant. And so the andrographilide, and it's called the king of bitters for a reason, right? It is incredibly bitter. And andrographilide content supposedly plays a role in its efficacy, particularly for the things that people use it for, or originally used it for the gut. But yes, you're right. So it has this effect as well on our immune system that seems to really help with inflammatory, respiratory, upper respiratory, and of course, gut inflammation as well. So I think andrographis is an amazing herb. It's a wonderful herb. I feel like it's more useful, of course, formulated. And when I do use it, I tend to use it. I feel like it works better at the onset of acute symptoms generally than it does later on. And plus, it's also just so freaking bitter. It's hard for people to take it. So if you take it as a, to try to take it as a decoction or tea is just impossible for most people. So the best thing to do is to just, have a nice concentrated tincture in a formula, hopefully where you can mask it a little bit, or they can even put it into something that's sour. Sour usually masks bitter the best, in my opinion, of taste. And then, take it that way, or take it sublingually if they can stand it long enough to do that. That's the issue with andrographis. Of course, you can take it encapsulated, but then you got the problem, and you're not tasting the herb. You're not getting any of that bitter effect that happens as soon as it touches your taste buds. That's the good stuff that we need, right? And I think it even stimulates submucosal lymph. I think that's part of how it works personally, is I think it really helps stimulate submucosal lymph and movement, which we need, especially at the onset of something like an acute viral infection. Okay. So anyway, I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents on andrographis. I hope that kind of helps. Betsy asks, I have a question about fresh milk oats? Yes. some say 1 to 2 and 40%. Oh, no. Yeah, no, higher alcohol for sure, in my opinion, is going to give you a better quality on that. Can you make an effective glycerite with it? Yeah, that's a good question. How I would recommend doing that. And I don't really use milky oats that much anymore. First of all, you need to harvest it fresh, in my opinion, to really get the real effect of oats, like the real effective thing. So you got to have it growing in order to do that. And we've lucked out sometimes. We had goats for a while down at the school, and we ended up with just this whole like field of milky oats because of all the goat poop, and they'd been eating some different wild oats and some of their mixes, I guess, and some of their seeds. And so we had a couple of years where we just had amazing harvests. I just don't really get a lot. I feel like there's other herbs that I can get a better effect from. But that said, I think that you can certainly get a glycerite that's effective from it if you're willing to still do the alcohol and just like, so I don't want to get into, this is going to go in a way medicine making detail that may, be a rabbit hole here, but it's a multi-frac. The way you do it is you do the alcohol and then you evaporate the alcohol out of the glycerite, right? And then you can continue with the same mark. So you've got the alcohol, and then what you're doing is you're also getting something out with the heat and the glycerin probably as well, but you're evaporating that alcohol out. So like 95% alcohol as a mash, not, like just just super saturated, a little more than super saturated, and then mixing that in, sort of like if you're doing an alcohol salve, same idea, right? When we do an alcohol salve, we usually use isopropyl alcohol because it evaporates at a lower temperature. It's easier to get out of there, but the same idea, right? So anyway, do this mash with your milky oats at 95%, and then you just go ahead and evaporate that out of your glycerite. And then you've got, a glycerite rather, that is alcohol free, and you're going to have a good effect with that as well. I would say doing like a 1 to 2 and 40%. I mean, I've tried it on lower alcohol percentages. I don't think it's anywhere near the same effectiveness. Let's see if somebody, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling down here to see what else may have come. Okay, so Jessica says I do 1 to 2 in 151. Yeah, sure, 151 is great. So yeah, once you're getting up around 70, 75%, you're definitely going to get a good result, in my opinion. Yeah, I just don't think 40% is a good one. Here's some stuff. Good. Okay, and then there's the question, which herbs would you recommend in place of the milky oats? So it depends on what you're trying to do, right? But as a nervine, so here's another little thing that I've learned, that I've found, is that when you start to combine your neuroregen, remember I was talking about mitochondrial support being the same as a lot of our neuroregen herbs. In other words, herbs that help restore or support the regeneration of the myelin sheath. Add those into your nervine formulas. What's in those nervine formulas is on the nervine side. Well, it depends on what you're trying to do, obviously. There's not a one-to-one that I would say, hey, this works the same as milky oats, but generally my favorite herbs that I work with that I would use time and time again before I would use milky oats would be wood betony, and that's the Stachys officinalis, but also the other betony, the peduncularis, helps in there as well. And then Scutellaria lateriflora, and then throwing in 1 or 2 neuroregen herbs, right? Like Alpinia oxyphila, or like Acherantes bidentata, which also helps with inflammation throughout the body really well. Or even Cornus officinalis. That's just to talk about some of the ones that we talked about back there. These are, to do 1 or 2 of those along with 3, 4, maybe even 5 nervines gives you a better effect overall, in my opinion, for that, for the people that are really stressed out. Absolutely. Burning the candle at both ends. Absolutely. And, Katia, she likes it a lot. She uses it a lot, and that's great. I think that, I think 1-to-1. So here's the thing, is that all your nervines are going to vary from person to person, maybe more than just about any other category of herb, right? What makes one person fall asleep immediately doesn't do that for somebody else. What makes one person feel like they've going from horrible anxiety to feeling great doesn't do that for somebody else the same way. It's usually not like, it's the opposite effect or anything, but there's just differences, right? And Jessica says valerian. I was just going to say valerian as well. You're absolutely right. Another one that's interesting about that comes down to just literally strains is cannabis, right? You'll find that one strain, while, you certainly can kind of, say, okay, in general, maybe sativas have this, or maybe indicas are a little more of that, and hybrids maybe, start to go in this direction. And now, of course, they're saying, well, it's, it's other constituents, and it's cannabinoids that are in there, and there's other constituents that are responsible for this. But I don't think we even begun to map out, what's going on there. But the point is that, one person can, take, smoke or whatever, however they're taking it, eat a cannabis that's a strain that gives them complete peace of mind, and somebody else can end up in like a massive anxiety attack from the same strain sometimes. So, I mean, that's a very, I would say, maybe almost hyperbolic example of what we're going to get. We're definitely with nervines generally, we're going to be sort of in the same area. It's just that they're not quite. It's very difficult to just say, hey, you feeling stressed out? This is the herb that'll do that for you. I just find you have to really be. That's why formulation works better, and that's why throwing in some neuroregeneratives seems to really help as sort of a carrier and or an effective, sort of an adjuvant, type of herb along there that increases the efficacy. Okay. Sorry, I know these chats are hard for me to get to the see. Here we go. I hate using the pad for my mouse. Okay, is there research you'd recommend read more about energetics of nervines? Well, and then somebody says Adaptogens by David Winston. Yeah, that's a great book. David Winston's amazing, very, very good. And David Winston really does, he does delve into energetics a lot and very well, and he's extremely experienced. So yes, I totally agree with you, Jessica, on that. The other thing that I would suggest, though, when it comes to energetics, is, in my opinion, the Bible on it is, but you gotta decipher the information sometimes on your own, is The Energetics of Western Herbs by Peter Holmes. There's nothing like that book out there, in my opinion. It's a set, it's 2-volume set. Valentina says, which herbs would you recommend for unexplained rash that come and go on a daily basis? Man, that's just, I can't, Valentina, I don't know. There could be so many things that needs a full intake. And, need to talk to you in depth to be able to figure out what's going on there. I mean, it could be, auto-inflammatory or autoimmune, or it could be, there's a lot of things that could be going on there. So it's just, I can't give you an easy answer to that. I'm sorry. Here's a good question. Bacopa and Gotukola Norwegian. Yes, Bacopa, absolutely. Actually, both of those are. Yes, they totally are. And I just didn't bring them up, but yep. Great. You might have been here. I'll type it out here. Oh, you got it. Somebody got it here, I think. Yeah, Peter Holmes. So energetics. Western Herbs, Peter Holmes. Make sure you get the 4th edition. That's the latest edition, and that's probably 20 years old. But you don't want the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd because there's all kinds of publishing errors in it. Like one edition is missing like 50 pages or something. Yes, absolutely. Okay, good. I think I caught up to the questions. If I missed something, let me know and I'll scroll back up. Yes, we sell that. That's the only book we sell other than my book. It's really the only book. I mean, I have hundreds of herb books, right? I don't think there's at least not a famous bird book that I don't have. But aside from occasionally looking at Michael Moore's stuff once in a while, I'll go back and refer to something there, or just to see, or just to remind myself, oh, what do you say about this? But other than that, the only book really that I refer to on a regular basis is The Energetics of Western Herbs. It's just so filled with so much information. And, for years, I was only using 50% of that book. And now that I, have my MSAOM and I'm getting ready for my board exams to get my license in acupuncture. And I'm understanding a lot of the energetic side of where he's coming from better. So now I feel like I'm getting 100% of the book, where I used to only get about 50%. But the 50%, and then I would get like 10% of the other 50% or so, whatever it was sometimes, or maybe 20% of it. And I'd be like, oh my God, this is incredible. I need to know more about this. Just the first 100 pages of that book, the introduction is, to me, it was almost, paradigm shifting for me when I read it the first time. And then Michael Morris, yes, of course. And yes, you can get all of Michael's Morris stuff on as a resource there, which is wonderful. And he's, Michael Moore was, he's one of a kind. He was one of a kind. But yeah, absolutely. David Winston, David Hoffman also, has great stuff out there. What's his name that also did a good energetics book? I forget now. I'm sorry. I've got the book. It's packed up obviously right now, but it's incredible. But it's a limited materia medica, unlike Peter Holmes. It's sort of Peter Holmes, but in more depth in the sense that he gets into dual and dual formulas and triads with these herbs, but the materia medica is really limited. There's only maybe 50 or 75 herbs in there, whereas Peter Holmes probably has, I don't know, a couple 250, something like that, maybe, herbs. And so there's so much more, breadth, and they're Western. Yes, that's right, Lynn. Thank you. They put it together into one. You're right. No, Amy, not Matthew Wood, and not Saja Popham. It's no, he's a well-known Western herbalist, a very well-known Western herbalist. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. My mind is really tired tonight. And human names are always the first thing to go when I get tired. Definitely not Jim McDonald. Not even. No, it's oh my gosh. No, he's a naturopath, like a licensed naturopath, I believe. He's written a lot of different research type papers as well. He's an extremely good author. If you're interested, email, I'll find it. I don't know where I'd post it for this to let y'all know, but I can see the cover. So I have the hardcover versions about. No, not Stephen. God, I keep wanting to say Donald Yance, but it's not Donald Yance. Yeah, I think it's Todd Caldecott. I think so. That's right, Carolyn. I believe so. I believe it's Todd who did that. It's basically a Western, it's an energetics. It's kind of like a Peter Holmes, but like I said, it's got more depth, but less herbs. Energetics of Western Herbs, something like that is the name. Yeah. If I did a search, I could find it real fast, probably under that name. I believe it's Todd Caldecott. Yay. Oh, yeah. So Eileen asked Michael Tierra. So yeah, and I was one of the first books up before I even, well, not long before, maybe a few months or so. I remember the very first was Planetary Herbology, right? And I like Michael Tierra. I love what he's doing and what he's done, and I think he's awesome. I know that some people have a problem with him. I certainly don't. I think that he has done some great, amazing things. Has some amazing students come through, and what he does. But Planetary Herbology, to just be blunt, and this isn't meant to be disparaging at all to Michael, but it's just not even in the same realm as Peter Holmes' books. It's barely scratching the surface. So as a book, Planetary Herbology is nowhere near the level, in my opinion. But as a school and all the things he's doing, of course, yeah, amazing and wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, I remember planetary herbology was an easy one to kind of get into too. Whereas Peter Holmes you gotta look at it and study it for a while to start to figure it out. And the way that he's arranged things and organized things is while it follows some of the TCM patterns, it's also unique. He's got his kind of his own way of doing things too. That's very fascinating to me. It doesn't always work. And you know, I mean, the version, I think the fourth edition, like I said, is at least 20 years old. So it's out of date. There's definitely some things he pulls in there that are out of date that you just have to understand are going to be there. But the concepts really, really hit hard. They're very, very good. Man, that's now bugging me. Let me go and see if I can look it up real quick. Now that we finally have good internet here. What's it talking about? No, it's not coming up. No, I guess it's not. Should come up if I just do it general. Search here. It's all Peter Holmes because the only thing comes when I say energetics and Western herbs, but it's got. Shoot, sorry, I hate to be like if I had all my stuff unpacked, I could just look on the bookshelf and tell you. But I can't, sorry. And he says, I'm enrolled in a couple courses of Human Path, I'm also interested in TCM. Would enrolling concurrently with East West be complementary or contradictory? It wouldn't be contradictory at all, I don't think. No, absolutely could be complementary, and would give you a better. And especially now that I'm, as I start to, I will continue to pull the curriculum around from TCM energetics rolled into Western herbalism, not just from a TCM perspective at all, but rolled into Western herbalism in my own way. And that's, you're going to see a lot more of that starting to come around in the courses. And of course, if you're doing the clinical stuff and you come into the clinic, then you're going to totally see that on an integrative level. You're going to see Western herbalism, you're going to see a little bit of TCM herbalism, and of course, a little acupuncture, some sports medicine, lots of functional medicine, all of that kind of coming together. So yeah, it's all complementary in my opinion. And you can always too, you can always say, well, this person said that, and this person said this, and let me find out for myself. And that's a lot of this information. It's funny because people think, well, allopathic medicine doesn't do that. It's always everything's set by set. And it's allopathic medicine, the study of if you want to become an MD or a DO is going to be very linear. It's true. You have to go to certain science classes first. And I've done it, right? I got into med school. You got to do all of those things, get there to a certain point, and then all the way through med school, it's going to be like that too. When I was in med school and started in med school, they said, do not try to study ahead on any of the pharmacology in year 2, right? Don't even try, because from the time you start, because you got a little bit of a summer off, from the time you start in the summer to fall, that information will have changed, so even there, you're finding that there's always change happening, even though it's a pharmaceutical side, but you have to be able to take all this information in. You're going to find people in any type of medicine that you study. You're going to find people that you really relate to and that tell you stuff that really hits you hard, and it's what you need, and it's good for you right then, and you'll never forget it. And then you're going to find people that are saying things that you just don't, doesn't really hit you, or you're like, I don't know about that. I need to check into that. And then when you do, you're like, not really. I don't agree with that, or maybe it works for this, but it's not for that, whatever. So you have to find your own way through any kind of medicine, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a little bit of a sidetrack. No, it wasn't Christopher Hobbs either. No. Sorry, Jessica. Sorry, everybody. I'm playing this guessing game. Gosh, I can see the cover in head. It's like a beige hardcover. Yeah, I just can't see the name. Lisa says, I'm looking for specific groups. Where do you suggest we find online? Well, yeah, good question. Things are changing out there. So what's available? I tell you, it's kind of getting more difficult. The big stores, the big names are going to be the following. I'll write them down, I'll type them in. Star Wars Botanicals, Mountain Rose, Pacific Botanicals. The Western herbs, those are the big ones that you're going to find. But there are many mom and pop type places, and those are becoming more and more, what would say, effective. Sometimes for certain herbs that you just cannot find because they're always sold out or they're just unavailable. Thanks, Amy. I appreciate it. No, definitely not David Hoffman, and definitely not Thomas Heasley. He's not even in the room. Samuel Thompson, that's, yeah, now we're going way back, and it's not. But Samuel Thompson definitely has some things that are worth looking at, though. Totally. Yeah. Shoot, that was driving me absolutely crazy. Gosh. Oh, is it Thomas Avery Guerin? Is this it? That might be Thomas Avery Guerin. Somebody already maybe said that. I'm not sure. Western herbs in Chinese medicine. Is that it? That's a different looking cover than the one I have. But I think that's the author, but I don't think that's the actual book. How many pages is that? That might be it. Western herbs in Chinese medicine. Thomas Avery Guerin. Oh, man, 384 pages. Gosh, let me look at the inside. I should be able. Well, this doesn't let you do that. Shoot, that might be it. Thomas Avery Guerin is a badass. The guy knows so much about Chinese medicine. Lived over there a long time. And very, of course, Western herbalist as well. He's really worth. Even if that's not the book, I'm sure it's great if that's not exactly the book I'm talking about. Okay. Okay, let's see. Hold on a second here. Can a person buy a nebulizer without a prescription? Yes, absolutely. You can. And not Culpeper. No, this is a modern. This is somebody who's alive right now, like my age. M's Herbals, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure if we bought from M's Herbals or not. Yeah, definitely not. It's not David Hoffman. No, David Hoffman's great. He's got great books, but no, I mean, I've bought nebulizers before as there's atomizer. There's different types of the nebulizers, right? There's atomizers and there's vibrational. So I know you can get like vibrational types, which are less, they're not as loud, and they're even portable. And I know you can get those like off Amazon or whatever too. Yes, Amy, I need to do that, don't I? Shoot, I wish I could just unpack my books and find it. Unfortunately, they're in a gigantic storage right now.
Here's what we can do. That way you guys don't have to keep going back and forth on, pick an herbalist. Is we'll find out who it is, and we'll have Sam do a quick little video. We'll show you the cover of it, and we'll post it on social media.
Okay. Yeah, I recently saw somebody on Facebook who talked about the book. Actually, it came out. Oh, you know what? On Amazon, I just somehow ran across it. Yeah, recently, like in the last month too. Shoot, it may be the Thomas Avery Guerin book though. That's certainly worth taking a look at. In case that's it. If I could open it up and look at the table contents, I'd be able to tell you. Okay. Well, anyway, let's see. Yes, I will do that, as Suchel said. Herbs for energy and mitochondrial function that are not adaptogens. How long can we take them for? Good question. If you're taking, gosh, you talk to Dr. Kyla Helms, she takes my Mighty Mito like every day, every morning, and she has for like 2 years, and you can. I think you just have to be careful of the dosage. I'm not a big fan of taking the same formula day in and day out, for months at a time. I think it's better to mix those formulas up a little bit, and you can always do that pretty easily. Minimum effective dose, it depends on your size and what's going on with you in your life. But for a lot of people, an adult, like a half teaspoon is all you need. And once a day, like in the morning, maybe once in the early afternoon, but you take it, or you do, we do it as a nausea as well, like a nausea oil sometimes too. And whether you take it as a nausea oil or whether you take it internally, after about like 3, 4, 5 p.m., and you may not be able to get to sleep. You're not going to be lying there wired like a caffeine high again, but you just want to do things. You just want to work. It's motivating. Yeah, I would even say, for 2 months, absolutely. But you could try it, like anything, you need to try it, you need to be aware of, if it starts to decline in its efficacy for you, which may be because you're building up some tolerance to it a little bit, then stop. Sure. Yeah, Amy. Share the screen and open it up. Oh, nausea oil, TJ. Sorry, Amy, that was directly to me. Nobody else saw that message, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yep, I'm gonna share my screen. It'll stop sharing yours. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, no problem. I don't need
Okay.
it.
Let's see. Actually, I don't need to share screen. I just need to hold it up. Sorry. Can you see that?
Yeah, how many pages does it have?
It looks like it goes to about 362 with the index.
Does it have like if you go to an herb, does it talk about that herb and talk about duals, like what, like one herb that you can put it with, and then sometimes 2 other herbs that you can put it with? It's like dualities of them. And it's just a materia medica, right? Like it's each herb is a chapter.
It's methodology and materia medica. And it talks about,
Like
it talks about like rectifying, chi and blood medicinals and things like that.
Sure, right. You go to like an herb, like whatever, yarrow or something like that. It should be in there. And then
Here we go. Here's calendula.
What are the subheadings in that chapter about calendula?
So functions and indications.
Okay.
Combinations. Yeah,
Okay.
major combinations combined with chamomile and Oregon grapefruit for heat toxin in the lower burner. Add golden seal or Wang Yiling for complications associated with dampness, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the book then. That's it. Thank you.
I don't know if you guys can see that at all.
Yeah, that looks right.
All right.
Good. Great. Glad we were able to get through that. Oh, just also, Amy, how many total herbs are there? DK, it doesn't even, probably doesn't number them, but I'll get a link to it. It's this one right here, I believe is what she's showing there.
I mean, it's got well over 100.
Huh.
Everything from several versions of Angelica, Acaranthes to Yucca.
Okay.
They're all meant, they maybe don't have their own section, but they're all mentioned as combined with.
Oh, okay. If you count the combinations, right.
Yeah, yeah. This is just through the index. So yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, I want to say, like, if you're just going through the materia medica as it's listed, and they're all Western herbs, there's maybe 50 or so, maybe 70, something like that.
I think that sounds right because that calendula was almost halfway through the book.
Right.
Whorehound, through these are the major sections.
Right.
So it's just, yeah.
Yeah, that's really my only criticism of it. And that's not, it's just it would be great if he had a bigger Materia Medica for something. It's a fantastic book. It would be great if he had a bigger Materia Medica on it. It's kind of like you feel like, oh man, could you talk a little bit more about this, or to talk about this other, find an herb. I remember when I was going through it, I kind of felt like, left me hanging on this one. I wish I'd had another one there, but anyway, yeah, fantastic book.
It looks like it's actually could be just like a volume 1. It doesn't say that, but
Right.
based on the content, I would assume that's maybe what the concept was volumes.
That's exactly what I thought too. Yes, absolutely. Like there could be another volume of it. There's probably more than that, Betsy, I'm guessing, if you look around. I mean, I'm sure, I know it's available other places too. I'm sure it's still in print. Okay, well, glad we finally answered that question. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. That's great. Yeah, I really enjoyed Thomas Avery Guerin's posts. I remember on social media when COVID hit, and he was over there. I remember him showing pictures of, I don't remember where either Beijing or Shanghai. I can't remember where he was, but just like ghost town, like nobody, curfew, nobody out at all. Or maybe it wasn't even a curfew, just people, but nobody was out. And then he was showing a lot of stuff that was going on over there. I mean, it was somewhat limited, I know, because of the whole internet crackdown stuff that started to happen. But yeah, it was he had some really amazing things. And then he was first one, I think, that really came out with some great information about TCM herbs and COVID at the time too. So he has just a wealth of experience and information between the worlds of Western and TCM for sure. Great. Thanks, Sherry. Awesome. Yes, that's right, Amy. I remember that now. Yeah, AHG, he gave a class. I think he might have even done it from over in China at the time. I believe he spent a lot of time over there. I think his wife may be Chinese, but I'm not sure. Great. Thank you, Sherry. Well, good, everybody. Well, I'm glad we solved that riddle. And let's, I guess we'll go ahead and call it a night tonight. But thanks, Jessica. Great. Yeah. And hopefully, if we aren't already in some of our classes, I'll see you soon in the HMP if you're coming into that. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a great class this fall. And of course, the austere acute as well is always so much fun with Dr. Pearson. Great. Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a great rest of the night.